What's up, hooligans? Jay Hooligan here,
Hooligan V.
and welcome to another edition of our live lunch. Today we're gonna be talking about some of the what's the polite way of saying putting yourself in hot water? I guess that's a polite way of saying.
Out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, we're talking about Disney. yeah, we're talking about Disney and a little bit about chain of title, screenwriting, and things like that, and why. I guess we'll touch a little bit on why vertical integration is bad. Okay, and this is one of those incidents of exactly showing you why it's bad. All right, we've been talking about this for a while. We kind of haven't done it specifically about anything because they've kind of been
About what integration?
about the industry vertical integration. Vertical integration specifically. Yeah.
Well, I think the more and more that it happens, a lot more cases come out where you can see it. You know.
Well, yeah.
Like the one a couple years ago, but we'll talk about that one.
Oh, not just a couple years ago. There's even news that just came out that Viacom CBS has partnered with Rakuten to make Nick Plus now streaming for kids. They
What is
exploit for kids.
Rakuten?
Rakuten. I think it's
I've never heard of that.
it's just another production company. I think it's geared towards kids.
Oh, they're making Nickelodeon.
Yeah, Nick Plus.
Oh my
streaming.
goodness.
So let's vertically integrate to exploit children now. So now you will be paying for your children because why not? And of course, Viacom is one of the big five, which I've been calling them the big five because it's not the big six, because Viacom and CBS had put themselves together.
But
Anyways,
before we begin,
yes, before we get further into that, you can help support us by becoming a hooligan yourself. Go to our Patreon, patreon.com/HideHooliganFilms, or going to buy one of our RPG IRL shirts. This is one of my favorites. This is another one of my favorites.
Like coffee.
This is just like coffee. Nice. You go and get one of our RPG IRL shirts down at thewanderingkiltsman.com/shop. Yes, so now Disney.
Disney, as you said.
Yeah, Disney. Alright, yes, they are in hot water. Let's go and take a look at the article. This actually came out last week on the 15th.
Sorry, why does that graphic on the left side look like sunglasses, but a guy with eyebrows that are just
It does. And you know, it's funny because it looks like it's like the brow across there, like a little shady.
Oh,
just a little bit shady.
You saw shady. I saw
Oh. Eyebrows up. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Predator screenwriters suing Disney to recapture their rights. So, Jim and John Thomas say Disney's hold on the franchise expires this week, which was last week. Disney goes to the court for the first time on the copyright termination front. So, Jim and John Thomas, the brothers who wrote the 1987 action film Predator, have filed a lawsuit against Disney seeking confirmation of successfully recapturing rights to the franchise. Meanwhile, Disney's 20th Century unit has filed its own suit against the Thomas brothers with the goal of retaining those rights, which, okay, this is what we'll get to it. Alright, the Thomas brothers are seeking to exploit copyright law's termination provision, which allows authors to cancel transfers after waiting a period of time. Typically 35 years for newer works. Given the time frame, studios are facing the prospect of losing franchise rights to many iconic works from the 1980s. Predator starred Arnold Schwarzenegger and spawned 3 sequels plus the spin-off movie series Alien vs. Predator. Reportedly, Disney has been eyeing a reboot with 10 Cloverfield Lane director Dan Trachtenberg at the helm. Such plans by Disney may face an obstacle in the form of termination. According to the complaint, the effective termination date for the screenplay, originally titled Hunters, is April 17th. It's actually last Saturday. Jim and John Thomas say they served a termination notice all the way back in 2016. It's 5 years ago. It's 5 years ago, and for 4.5 years heard no objection. Okay, as stated in their complaint. Then, in early January 2021, defendants' counsel unexpectedly contacted plaintiffs' counsel, contesting the termination notice as supposedly untimely. Yeah, based on a theory that the 1986 grant of the screenplay underlying their Predator films allegedly qualified for the special delayed termination time window in etc., 17 USC, blah, 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 intended for book publication grants. Oh, okay, Disney. In response, the Thomas brothers say they served alternative notices of termination with later effective termination dates. Aw. Yeah. That hasn't satisfied Disney, so the Thomas brothers are now seeking declaratory relief. They are represented by Mike Toberoff, who has been somewhat of a specialist in copyright termination and notably represented the Friday the 13th writer in a court win pending appeal. The complaint is below, etc., etc. Within the hours of the filing by the Thomas brothers, Disney's 20th Century Division had its own lawsuit ready to go. Quote, while federal statutory copyright law endows certain grantors... Okay, there's a lot of legal speak, so bear with me. Alright, let me start over. Quote, while federal statutory copyright law endows certain grantors, like defendants, the Thomas brothers, with copyright termination rights, such rights may only be exercised in accordance with the statute's requirements, including provisions delineating when termination notices may be served and when the termination of rights becomes effective. States the 20th Century complaint. Defendants' notices fail to comply with these statutory requirements and are invalid as a matter of law. Like,
wow.
W-T. Yeah.
See, I would want to see what they say in the contract. Do they have that on
Oh,
there?
no, they have the complaint. They just have the complaint.
That's weird. If they filed it already, it's saying, like, hey, we wanted to take our rights back, 5 years ago, and nobody said anything about it.
Yeah. Which is why this sounds really stupid, guys.
It's lawyer speak.
It's a lot of lawyer speak, yes.
Dumb sometimes.
Yes. Disney's 20th Century is being represented by Star O'Melveny.
Where?
By Star O'Melveny, litigator
Where?
Daniel Petrocelli, Molly Lenz, and Kendall Turner. About a decade ago, on behalf of Warner Brothers, Petrocelli fought Toberoff over rights to Superman. That case lasted for years and grew very nasty, with allegations that Toberoff had tortuously interfered with rights. Ultimately, Warner Brothers prevailed. No surprise there, right?
Well, if you're interfering with the rights and you're muddling stuff, it could not end up well on your side.
Yeah, the two are now stepping back into the legal ring over Predator. Quote, 20th Century seeks a declaration pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 2201 that defendants' notices of termination are invalid. Continues the 20th Century complaint. This action is necessary because defendants are improperly attempting... Get a load of this. This action is necessary because defendants are improperly attempting to prematurely terminate 20th Century's rights to the Hunters screenplay at the very time that 20th Century is investing substantial time, money, and effort in developing another installment in its successful Predator franchise. Like,
premature for them. It's premature for them. That's what it is.
Yeah. That's a Whiskey Tango Foxtrot right there. Like a major like, huh?
I mean, like,
what?
I don't know. I get it if there was certain, like, rules and, like, certain, like, a standard they're supposed to take before they can go into, like, public court or, like, report publicized, if there was those written in the contract.
Okay, but they're running off of the Copyright Act, all right, which, again, 35 years! 35 years! And y'all complaining because they didn't give you enough time. They gave you a 5-year notice, bro.
Oh, that's not enough time, apparently.
But apparently that's not enough time.
But it's only premature when they're spending money and they're gearing up for the next film. I'm like, oh, it's premature. I was like, really?
Premature, man. Yeah, okay, buddy. Yeah, this is absolutely why we talk out against the Big Five, Disney being one of them. All right? Why is this important? Well, as screenwriters out there, and screenwriters ourselves, and as indie film producers and filmmakers, this is absolutely important when it comes to actually selling the rights to your film, even. Okay? You should probably always read the fine print of your contracts. We've mentioned this before. It's we literally tell our actors whenever we sign release forms, read your contracts.
Learn the difference
not just
between
release forms, but your contracts.
and non-exclusive.
Yep, exclusive to non-exclusive. Like, I get it, especially for screenwriters out there that they want to get their works known. Like, you want that exposure. You want somebody as big as, I think it was 20th Century Fox at the time, because this was before Disney even acquired them. So, now that Disney has them, and they're like, oh no, we're going back into that. And like, oh, okay. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
But sorry, go ahead.
I don't remember. It's fine.
No, but just the whole idea of the vertical integration with the big five, right? This is important of why we need to, as indie filmmakers, like I was saying, you need to be more cognizant of what's going on in our own industry. Yeah, this stuff with the big five, again, I keep calling them the big five. I'm going to keep saying that because the big six were a thing back in the 1920s. They were the big six studios that owned, that vertically integrated. Essentially, if you don't know what vertical integration is, that is monopolizing an industry, right? They own the rights of the stories, the actors, the directors, all the content, all the way up through distribution because they have their own theaters, right? That is literally history, and it is literally why the 1948 Supreme Court ruling is where they separated studios from owning theaters, okay? So they would not vertically integrate. It violated the Sherman antitrust laws according to U.S. versus Paramount. Again, Supreme Court ruling in 1948. And again, why that's important is because now with all the new media stuff, this new media loophole, which we haven't talked about in a long time, right? It has allowed these giant corporations, these giant studios, to return as the big five. It used to be that there was this separation of studios, like independent studios, and like you had the big studios, and there was companies all over the place. Nope. Now there is corporate cannibalism, which is essentially a bigger company coming in and swallowing up smaller ones, buying them out, and it is owned. 98% of media and entertainment is owned by about 5 different companies, and I say 5 because the big 6, like it used to be 6 until I forget when the Viacom and CBS remerged. I think it was like 2010s sometime.
Mm-hmm.
So not that long ago, they remerged back together to create now, instead of the big 6, now it's the big 5. Now just imagine that. Like if you're an indie creator trying to get distributed and you are owned by, I don't know, like you're trying to distribute through some distribution company, but that's all just owned by Disney. They're literally cornering the market. Okay? And then you get problems like this where the screenwriters are literally 35 years in the making going, hey, we served you this notice back in 2016. You knew it was coming. No complaint for 5 years. Or 4.5 years is how they put it. Because January of this year, they're like, yeah, no. We you guys give us too short of a notice. Like, what? And these companies that grow too big like that, it's that whole idea of too big to fail. It's like, no, they're monopolizing the industry.
Yeah, and then they pay very little to the artists or to the filmmakers actually doing it.
Or don't even give you your rights back after 35 years according to copyright law.
No, it's like what was that thing you were telling me about? Here, I made this.
Oh, yeah. It's like if I come to you and be like, hey, I made this. And you take it, you're like, you made this. And then I walk away, and you're like,
I made this.
Yes. That's essentially what it's like. And again, these companies, the big studios like that, especially Disney, right? They are strong-arming the little guys. This is literally their screen. They're the ones that wrote it. They're the ones that bought. They got their rights bought out for it. Fine. They made it. They changed it to the title. Great. Whatever. And now they're trying to reclaim that, and it's like, nah. You know, that is complete bull right there. And this is why, Hollywood and the Big Five can just go kick rocks, man. And why, again, we need to,
how does Ross
as
say
an
it?
industry, huh? Yeah. It's like why we need to be, as indie filmmakers, more vigilant with what's going on in our industry. Instead of, when all these other distractions are out there, and I hate to say they're distractions because they are legitimate things that are going on out there, but you can still touch base with that. Now, I've looked up, I meant to mention this earlier, but I have looked up to see if there's any update on this, because this was last week. There is no update on it yet. I've checked, I've done a search even just right before we got on this podcast.
Our live
lunch, before we got on our live lunch, and
well,
I haven't seen anything on there, because they were supposed to, again, the termination was supposed to end on Saturday, and they were supposed to have somewhat of an answer by this week sometime. But
well, it's pretty new, isn't it? Didn't it just recently come out? What is it?
like I said, just last week. Last week the article dropped about that. So I don't know what they're doing right now, if they're actually going through litigation or not.
Right. Just like speaking of this, because remember when Halloween was coming out?
Mm-hmm.
That's also when they were trying to reboot Friday the 13th, and the writers are trying to get those rights back as well. It's like all these big studios are having a hard time, like including the original people.
It's like not just that. It's like these big studios having a hard time following the law.
Well, they're above it because they, make so much and they control so much.
Exactly. This is why
assets are so huge.
Yeah, and this is why they're all. Again, I'm not so much into the government trying to control your business. However, I do believe that there are some regulations that do benefit everybody, especially the little guys like us. In the long run, like the Sherman antitrust laws, right? Sherman antitrust laws are essentially you cannot monopolize and vertically integrate into an industry like this. So, again, they lost in 1948. That was technically for old media, which is funny. If you look up old media, that includes feature films. However, the new media loophole, if you guys haven't been keeping up with our videos from, even from late last year, we were talking about the new media loophole, and that essentially means like there are no laws against it right now, because the old media, which includes, like I said, feature films and television, is now being circumvented with new media, which includes which now includes those TV shows and feature films through the internet. So it is no longer analog television. It is no longer feature film reels that they send out to theaters now, because it's all based off of internet, which is new media. The laws do not apply. Then that the old ruling does not apply. We can thank Netflix for that in 2010. Because when 2010 they started doing Netflix originals, right? They already started doing the stream before that. And when they started, and the thing is with streaming, when they did it, they would license out. They would buy out licenses to rent to other people, which was all legal at the time. And then they did Netflix originals and started bringing out their personal content. And nobody, for at least 5 years? 5 years after that, hit them. Mm-hmm. Everybody was like, they were like, all the studios were all upset because Netflix was getting more popular and nobody was hitting them on antitrust laws.
It was a new media thing.
Because it was a new media thing. Exactly. That's my point. It's like it's because it was a new media thing. Nothing. No, they didn't say anything, and they were like, oh, okay. If they're not getting hit on it, then boom, stream wars happened.
They could have said something about it, but they didn't.
Well, they tried to. That's the thing. Well, I'm saying, like their lawyers sat back and watched and were like, why are they doing this? This is our industry. Why are these newbies getting our money? Essentially, what it was. And then the stream wars happened. That was the basis of the stream wars. Everybody started coming out at the same time, going, you know what? They haven't gotten hit by it. Boom, 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 boom. And I believe it started with Roma. Actually, it might have started even before Roma,
I think it started before Roma, but like Roma was that one that was like, what the heck, dude?
That was like the public catalyst, I want to say, because Roma was the one that won Best Picture, and it was from Netflix. Netflix changed their own internal laws so that they could win an Oscar, right? And it worked, and all the studios were upset. They're like, you know what? Screw it, we're gonna do our own. We're gonna make Disney Plus and HBO Max, and I think I don't know if HBO Max was already out at that time, but Paramount Plus, Hulu, now we're getting right? Nick Plus. Well, Hulu and Netflix.
But Hulu is more of it's like cable, right? Ish.
Yeah, again, so that's the way that they're trying to circumvent everything is, the old media, the Sherman antitrust law, the ruling, the Supreme Court ruling from 1948, applied to old media, which included television, which is why all television and cable is going away because it's considered old media, and everything's going to stream. It's literally just shifting all your assets from television and hard media to digital, and then going, but like, guys, it's digital now. It's not hard media, so
it's not the same.
It's not this. Yeah, it's
There's
not the
this
same.
fine line between digital and physical. You know.
Yep, and again, now it's weird because it's like anything going into your TV. However, again, that new media loophole. What happens with that is that now you have TVs like the Roku TV. Used to have little devices come out which streamed your content, which was acting like a computer, because that's what new media is entailing. Things that have to go through something like a computer, right, to process separately. It's not streaming directly from a cable company or your television companies going through your cable or not. It has to come through a computer. And now you have smart TVs which only work through, or will not only work, which also work through streaming services. So all these big TV companies are moving to these streaming platforms like, say, Hulu. But who owns Hulu? Disney. Right? So
it's all about wording, back to the whole lawyer speak. It's like you said that if you push somebody versus you tap somebody, it's all about how you word things.
Yeah, and lawyer speak, it's like I like what lawyers do, but sometimes, man, lawyers can they just muddle up.
Toxicity is some of it because they muddle it so much that it becomes like, no, this is the fine line.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then again, you get indies like us that that may be struggling, or all indies are struggling right now because, again, you got the big five that are ruling over everything, because they've vertically integrated, and it's just not cool, right? And then say not even this one, but Predator is not a spec script; it's its own original script that they ran off of Hunters, right? So when you start talking about that, but we've actually had trouble trying to get a hold of a company more recently, actually from last year.
Was it last year? No, it was the year before.
Nope, because it was when the lockdowns happened.
Are you sure?
Yep.
I think it was the year before.
Nope. It felt like a year before. It was last year.
I think we started it the year before.
We started it the year before, yes, and we didn't actually get the thing out. So what we're talking about is the rights to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise reverted back to the Wes Craven estate. Now, they've been trying to, and there've been multiple companies out there. I think even Elijah Wood's company were trying to do a story for it. They were trying to reboot the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise by rebooting, but they wanted something where I know Robert Englund said he would return, but he doesn't want to star in the new Nightmare on Elm Street because he wants to leave the franchise for good. He's been saying that for many years now. But they've been wanting something that just the new direction for. And so what we did was we ended up watching all the Nightmare on Elm Streets over the course of a few days, and we ended up finding a good insertion for story, which we have. We do have a synopsis. We do have a full treatment for that's copywritten, and it's ours, and it pays homage to the old, and it paves way for the new. And our biggest problem with this is, again, it's how do we get a hold of them? Because
it's the chain of title.
It's kind of like chain of title.
Who has the rights?
Who has the rights? Chain of title. If you don't know what chain of title is, it's essentially the chain of owners for a particular title that owns it. So
you typically need that for your deliverables, right?
You need that for your deliverables because they need to make sure that everything is legally, sound and everything. So, say if the rights reverted to the Thomas brothers, right, and Disney decides to continue on with their Predator, a new Predator spin-off or movie, okay, they would be in the wrong, and then the Thomas brothers can sue, and that most likely they would probably settle outside of court instead of trying to win it like they're trying to do now before they even get to filming. So they're in development for this. They're not even actively like filming anything, going, hey, yeah, we were just too busy 5 years ago developing this and pre-pro and hiring and whatever. It just didn't cross our table. Nope. They're in development right now.
That would have been brought up. Because typically, the whole chain of title thing, or trying to figure out the licenses for stories, it's like, that's the first thing you do before you even begin any of that stuff, to make sure you have all the rights so you can distribute it and make money off it.
Crazy.
Otherwise, what are you doing?
Yep. And I know there was new laws that say, was it more recently, they say like even word of mouth can hold up in court for saying you can.
Recently, yeah.
More recently, like you're saying you're giving someone the rights to, and then they do that, and then, you know, they make a version. Say like if someone has a story by, and then somebody else writes a screenplay, right? Because they've gotten verbal, even email permission, not even by contract, they can still do it. And not be legally, or not be violating copyright law, right? So, again, just trying to stay in the up and up on our industry and how that actually works with everything. It's been a ridiculous thing. Anyways, but that whole Nightmare on Elm Street thing, it's like, because we have a treatment, we haven't started on a script yet because we wanted to develop that with the Wes Craven estate, but the problem is what? Trying to find them. No, not even Robert Englund will hear any pitch that's not coming from the Wes Craven estate.
Referred us back to the license holders, and then when we checked, it was Warner Brothers, but it wasn't Warner Brothers anymore. It reverted back to the Wes Craven estate, and then it's like researching who's part of the Wes Craven estate and trying to find his kids, and it's just a lot of because the Wes Craven estate doesn't have a lot on it.
Yeah.
When you're trying to research it.
So yeah, and anyway, but that's the whole thing of like trying to find the chain of title. We mentioned this because we actually heard back because we the treatment that we do have includes the Dream Warrior and Miss Lisa Wilcox. She did actually email us back today, and even I was just really excited. And even a couple hours ago, and I was like, Lisa, I know, I really want to get to this.
It kind of surprised me, you know, because I remember sending that email out early last year, you know, and the fact that she was so eager, and it was really great. But finding that chain of title, my goodness! But being able to see that from her, like today, this morning, it's like, oh, okay, we really gotta get going. Yeah.
And honestly, I'm just thinking about just doing a spec anyway. Just write a spec, and then try to send that and contact
Wes Craven Estate. Because remember, we were trying to.
Yes, we tried to get all the Dream Child. I haven't heard back from him. I thought we did. He did email back, and
we sent him the stuff.
Yeah, we sent it to him. He was more interested in making sure Freddie didn't overstep him. That was kind of funny. But there was interest that was built up from that because of the story that we had. And again, it paid. I would still love to see it because it paves the way for the new. It pays homage to the old. You know, it allows Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger 2 bow out respectfully, even in there and done in a way where again, like I want to see this movie. That's if you write films, like you should be making film. If it's a filmmaker, an indie filmmaker, you should be making films that you want to see. Okay, what the stories are, etc., etc., and then hopefully there is more of an audience there that you can become more popular for. Now, there are certain things like understanding story structure and history of it, audiences, and marketing and things like that are kind of important if you're wanting to make it big, but for the most part, for the artistic realm of filmmaking, make films that you want to see. Period. Okay? And from there, like I said, either you're going to build an audience or build a fan base. Like I said, there's a difference between there's no such thing as building an audience. It's just building a fan base. And your fan base eventually becomes an audience of its own. Right? But you want to build your fan base based off of your work that you do. Okay? And from that, like I said, if you're making that, and you say a studio decides to pick up your short film to make into a feature, right? Most of the time, they'll just buy the rights out. Now, if they pull something like if Disney decides to buy out the rights to a short film to make into a feature, I'd say go for it. Go for it. Just don't try to expect it to be what's the right word, like how going through this sort of litigation that the Thomas brothers are going through right now, right? Because theirs was literally a feature called The Hunters, right? So that themselves, it's like they wrote, they made, but if you're making a short film, what did they do? Lights Out. Lights Out's a perfect example of that, where a studio came and picked it up based off of the short. The short ended up winning a ton of awards. It was fantastically done. A studio bought them out. Obviously, they brought in, I forget who directed that.
I don't remember.
But they brought in they brought in their own directors. They brought in all their production company or their production assets and et cetera, and they completely ruined the feature. Because there is a difference between short films and feature films, and you have to know, which surprisingly studios, I guess that studio at least, didn't know how to, transform something as a short into a feature. Now, I give them some credit. They did understand that it did need a change based off of it, and they did change it.
But they changed it well enough, though.
However, there were massive missteps in that, which is why it didn't do as well. But hopefully the original creators at least got paid, which I'm sure they did when they bought the rights out for that. But again, that all goes back to the Copyright Act, the copyright law. So again, there's so many things you gotta have have your hands in just to understand all the stuff that's going on.
Well, it sucks, thinking about like people who are trying to make it in the industry and they're just trying to sell their script, trying to get their foot in the door anywhere, right? But at what point, at what cost, do they sell their
At what cost?
Their stories, because a lot of these companies like Disney, the bigger companies will ask for exclusive deals and just like, I'll just buy it straight out from you, and then if that story ends up doing well, they don't want to pay you extra, because you made that deal already.
Yeah, and the thing is though, for the Nightmare on Elm Street thing, it's called The Dream Thief. That's the one that we've developed the story. We have the full story for it, and again, it's something that I'm sorry, I just totally lost track of what I was saying. I totally got distracted.
You went back to Nightmare on Elm Street.
What were you just talking about? You were just talking about.
I was talking about how like artists, like how these studios will buy like these indie artists stories and stuff, but then they pay a flat fee, and then if that story ends up doing really well, they don't pay them any extra.
Absolutely. So that's why I brought up The Dream Thief. So for the way that we want to do it is, we want to get the estate involved, because again, just like understand the whole idea of how, like, if you come up with a spec and everything starts with a script, and you're like, hey, here's a full script, right? Versus maybe pulling in their writers. I think that's what we wanted to do, is we wanted to pull in their writers or the team that they want to bring in based off of the story that we have, to really fine tune it and make it a Wes Craven, homage to Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger, right? And to just really be able to set it up and to do it in the way that they want to, because that's the other side to it. It's like, great, if they have an idea for it, and that's why, like I said, I think I'm just going to do a spec anyway, and just to build it up. So, Ms. Sherman, we really do appreciate your support for this, and we will be in touch. It's the dream word.
Wilcox.
Yes, Wilcox Sherman.
I was like, I don't remember that part.
Yeah, I know. It's so we really do appreciate your support on that, and we will be in touch for that too. But that just goes back to again, original work versus what do they call it? It's when it's derived from another work, like somebody else's work. I'm totally blanking on it right now.
Oh my gosh, I should know that.
Yeah, it's another legal term where you're doing work off of something. Jeez, I'm gonna kick myself as soon as
it is spec.
It is a spec, but there's a specific term. It's a specific term where you're deriving from somebody else's piece of work, and it's literally written into like all the guilds, the copyright law, everything, and it's like, okay, just so much stuff going on, guys. But that's exactly what it is. But
yeah.
Anyways, that whole side. Okay, so if we were to sell that, right, just the screenplay, and it's like that's it, they're gonna do whatever they want to it anyway, which is why we wanted to be a part of that process, because we feel the story, again, sets up a whole new generation of movies. Because I think that was the thing that we were writing with even Accursed, right? It's a franchisable film.
To be able to see the film's future, like its potential.
Its potential for it. It's not a one-off, is what we call. Like a one-off is like this movie stands alone. There's not going to be any sequels or prequels. You could make it, but it's like you're at a stretch. Things like Accursed were made specifically to franchise out. So now you have prequels, you have spin-offs that you can do, sequels, trilogies, or etc. And keep moving on that. And it takes a certain eye, like I said, to really understand story, to expand upon that. And that's that's just how my mind works, is to build the universe first, and then because rules in the universe are really important to me. That rules in the universe lies along the lines of world building, and if you're running off, we've mentioned this before, running off of franchises that are already made, it's sometimes difficult to maintain the fan base, maintain the rules of the universe while appealing to the old fan base and a new fan base. Okay, but those are the types of things that we talk about constantly, whenever we're writing and really diving into story. Okay, because those are all important things. What was it? It wasn't Rogue One. Was the Last Jedi? Or the Rise of Skywalker, I think.
You're asking the wrong person.
Okay. It's one of the later Star Wars films, and we've talked. I've talked about a lot of it. There are reviews online on Film Jammer, like for that, to go like, what is going on? Because the rules of the universe have been established since like the 70s when Star Wars first came out.
I think it was.
Right? Was it Last Jedi?
Last Jedi. It was a whole Luke thing, right?
No, it was more than it wasn't just okay. That's gonna bug me. Hold on.
I swear Luke was in it.
Well, yeah, Luke is in those. Right? He's technically in all of them.
I thought he wasn't in all of them. I thought he was only in that one.
Oh, girl, you need to rewatch some of those Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you. I'll rewatch Lord of the Rings. But
I know that. I know you're more fantasy than you are sci-fi. I'm all of the above. Yeah, it was The Last Jedi. Last Jedi, that whole rules of the universe. Talk about violating the rules of the universe that were already made. Like, I get what you were trying to do. At the same time, you already have an audience, which started out as a fan base, for Star Wars, that know the rules of the dang universe. When you start violating those rules, even within the context of your own freaking movie, like, that's when you start losing people, because it's like, what the heck is that? For example, right, I'd hate to say spoilers, but if you haven't seen it yet, like, you can go watch it. The whole thing with Princess Leia, being sucked out into space, and then she's like, oh, frozen, and then like, oh, but I have the Force, and it makes me survive out in space, for one. But then you have, was it Laura Dern driving through the dang starship, and, like, everybody's like flat on the ground, gravity's still maintained, Finn and, I forget the other actress's name, character's name. They were all right. By the way, they were just about to get executed, and they were surrounded by a ton of stormtroopers, including Phasma. And then all of a sudden, this lady, Laura Dern, just drives through this thing, and the ship explodes, and all the ships behind it explode, and then Finn and the other girl still just lying on the ground, barely any stormtroopers. And then in walks Phasma from some other side. She was standing right next to them, like, what the heck is going on? You're like, huh? I know. Just, that's what I'm talking about, man. Like, those types of things just irk the hell out of me, because it violated its own rules of their universe.
You guys couldn't already see.
Yeah. It's just, Uh, yeah, but this is why it's like rules of the universe and world building is really really important, especially if you're establishing a new franchise. But if you're playing off of an
Well-
older franchise, you kind of have to take all those things into account when you're writing a newer story.
Right. Like spec scripts and stuff like that. When you're writing for those stories that you're trying to play off of, make sure you really understand those characters, that universe, you know?
Exactly. Otherwise, you're going to make something that doesn't make sense. And again, why I felt taking on the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is because that's one of my favorite franchises. I love the series, right? I grew up on that. That was my like. Once I finally got over my fear of horror movies, like that was one that I remember enjoying the most was Dream Warriors, right? And then going back and watching the originals and moving on, and then it started to go like, into the series, and it was like, I mean, I get what they're doing, but at the same time, it doesn't really play out that well. Anyways, but yeah, trying to understand the franchises, trying to understand the rules of the universe, your audience, yeah, and then where that they want to take it, right? So because that was the art. I remember there was an article that came out. That's why we decided to do it. It's like, oh, they're shopping for a new story, but they still want to play towards Nightmare on Elm Street.
I forgot about that.
And we're like, dude, like that's what I grew up on. Let's just watch them, and we did, and we just totally broke it down. But again, that's a whole trying to find that chain title, like who's involved and whatnot, and trying to just write a spec.
It's just funny because the article was saying that they were shopping for new material, but there was no way to really contact them.
Yep.
It was just more of a statement, and
yes,
I have yet. That was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I have yet to hear anything about any progress from it.
Yep, and like I said, we had tried. We had done a lot of research for that, and even found out that I think I said Elijah Wood's company, his production company, were trying to get in on that, but again,
they also have to follow the same thing.
You got to follow the same routes. But again, what story did they have? We don't know. We just knew that they were trying to get into it. They didn't actually from that article. I don't think that they even said they had a full complete story yet, which is why we reached out to them, wanted to see if they want to collab and combine forces, because again, it's all just about stacking cards in your favor, right? We've already got the Dream Warrior on board. If we get Elijah Wood's company on there too, fantastic. I forget the name of it because it's already been over a year, and I'm like, okay.
Been busy.
Yeah, we've been busy. We kind of once we started hitting dead ends, we kind of just
especially
shifted.
last year kind of set a lot of things.
Yeah, with life and obviously with lockdowns and whatnot. So trying to move all that, we kind of moved out from it. But maybe that's a sign from today, literally today, to get back into it.
I know.
Which I think is fantastic. Yeah. But again, just understanding all those things and being able to build. It is a lot, and that's one thing I guess I can kind of pride myself on. Like, I love rules of the universe, and it's like that's one of the things. Like I said, if it violates it, it irks the hell out of me. That's one of my complaints about Lights Out. They did not understand the rules of the universe, and then they made it. It was all in the ending that they screwed it up. Everything else would have been fine, but nope. They violated their own rules of the universe and threw in this weird it's literally somebody projecting out who was stuck in the house who's still alive. I'm like, this is, it's stupid. I'm sorry, that was just kind of dumb. Anyways, I'm really big on that because again, we spent the past 2.5 years. I can't say the past 2.5 years. We took like 2.5 years delving into like a ton of different programs on screenwriting, on story structure. Like over like 24 different groups and systems that were out there, and really dissected them and analyzed them. Taught like this is what we do. This is why we really pride ourselves on storytelling. Are we telling an arc plot versus an anti-plot versus a multi-plot versus a blah blah, whatever. Are we doing a hero's journey? Are we doing a villain's journey, which is something that people don't talk about because that's one of ours.
Yeah.
So yeah, well they talk about it in terms of positive change or negative change arc is how they put it. But we call it a villain's journey because it sounds cooler. Anyways, but like, yeah, just going through and just diving all the way into all that sort of stuff. And do we know it all? Absolutely not. But it's one of the things that I feel like we've got a good foothold in as indie filmmakers. And again, we've tried to, we've taught people out here about this stuff. We're trying to teach people about that.
What's the story?
Yeah, what's the story? We just did that
last week?
Last week, was
Thursday,
it?
Right?
I think so.
Yeah, we just talked about
you have
that.
a film idea. What's the story? And that has to do with the selling process. So again, understanding all of what's going to sell. If you're trying to sell to, say, a distributor or a buyer, what is it from their perspective is what's going to be how did Philzy put it? Like, what's sexy, right?
Yeah.
What's going to sell for them? What's going to entice them to want to buy that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's a whole other mindset. But you really do have to go into these different hats to understand, like, hey, this is how it is. From this perspective, if I'm pitching to an investor, this is what they want to know the numbers. They want to know how they're going to get their money back. You can still sell with the story and emotion, but the numbers do still have to be there. You don't necessarily have to do that if you're trying to bring on the actors or for a crew or something like that. You'd have a different sort of pitch for them, right? So yeah, I mean, there's so many different sides to it, and a lot of indie filmmakers, they just don't. Well, at least a lot of new indie filmmakers, they just don't understand that there is all these things to think about. You could still make the film that you want if you want to sell it, though, right? That's a whole different arena.
Remember rights, remember chain of title.
Yep, rights, chain of title, right? Who owns the rights to the title? That's essentially what chain of title is.
It's great for people to make their own projects and their own scripts because you already know that you own it. But at the same time, that also, it's kind of a give and take. It's like, do you have that story, that sellability, that marketability?
This is why you cannot copyright an idea, right? That's why we've copywritten our treatments and our scripts, because those are not ideas, those are actual work. They're pieces of work that we've done, okay? And they were like, oh, I don't want someone to steal my idea. It's like, okay, but you haven't done any of the work. An idea is just an idea. Okay, you haven't copywritten it. It's not, what's a good way to put it? All right, the idea or the premise of what if alien machines could transform into vehicles. That's an idea. Now you have people that have written scripts based off of that for something called Transformers, and you have people that have written scripts off the same premise, off the same idea, like Transmorphers. Right?
Well, it's like, what's the story?
What's the story, and which one sells
idea
better?
And story are
which one is better executed, etc. So there's all these other factors to it, but when it comes down to what's the idea behind it? Which one would you rather say? The idea is the same. The idea is the same, but who is writing it and who is executing that matters. Okay. So this idea, this weird stigma, especially in screenwriters, where I don't want anybody to read my idea. I don't want to talk about my idea. I'm afraid they're going to steal it. I'm like, but if you've written a script and you've copywritten it, then you are protected. Your story is your story. Nobody writes like you. Okay, even if you have a particular style, nobody technically writes like you. Okay. And they can try to steal that. And if they do steal your actual work, now you got a court case. Okay? Now you can say, like, hey, they have stolen my work for this, right? It's you can sue them for that. But just talking to somebody about an idea of something, I mean, well, who was that? Was it Brubaker's partner? He was talking about, like, oh, he had the idea for some series, and he kept pitching it everywhere, and then somebody else made it.
Possibly. That happens a lot like too.
But that happens a lot too, because if you're just running off a pitch, right? That's why NDAs. That's why we're always open to sign NDAs. Like, you want to talk about it, we want to make sure that you feel protected and that we feel protected as well. That if you feel like we're going to steal your ideas or steal your work, again, NDA.
Now you got companies like Crypt TV that will say, you can give us the rights to look at your film and let's debate, and not just to look at it, and that's
Yep.
debating whether or not we want to actually use it or not.
Yep.
But we still have the rights.
Yep.
It was really.
And
I'm
they'll still
trying to
be-
remember exactly what the wording was.
Something like they still retain-
that. You have to give them the rights before you can even submit your
So
your film
ridiculous,
or
man.
anything to them.
And
And I'm
it's
just like,
so
that's
backwards.
that's weird. It's really weird and shady.
It's backwards and shady, and yeah, that's not. I mean,
Sorry, I
Crypt
called
TV is
them out.
built up,
But I
yeah.
called them out.
But I get it, man. But that's why a lot of people are not happy with Crypt TV and the way
Well, look
that
at
they
they're
do
at
stuff.
now. I mean, they're not that
Yeah,
as
where
big
are they
as
at?
they used to be.
Yeah, where are they at, man? And they were doing shorts. You know,
They
weren't
started
even
doing
they started doing
the Crypt Monsters or something like that,
Mhm.
and like it fell off.
Yeah.
People don't want to
Well, 'cause
don't
people
want to
don't
deal
want.
with them.
Yeah, people don't want to deal with them because you got to give
I
us
don't
your
want
rights
to do business
first.
with somebody who doesn't want to do business with you.
Yep.
You know.
Which is why we try to do good business first and always and maintain it, right? So yeah, stuff like that, and like again, if you want to discuss story, if you want to do like breakdowns, we also do coverage, right? Script coverage for people when they actually do it. I've even done it for people that have incomplete scripts, and it's like I don't like doing that, just because it's like you want an honest review of something, but part of that is part of our review and our 6-point analysis that we use has to do with the character's arc. If you don't have a complete work, how am I going to know their arc? Right? And that's different, obviously, than a series where the character's arc goes over a complete season and you're trying to get script coverage over a pilot or season 1 episode, an episode 1, script that you have. But again, there still has to be an arc, right, of some sort. And the arc, again, I'd hate to say there has to be an arc. There will always be an arc, whether it be a positive, a negative, or a flat arc, right? And depending on which arc you're going with will affect the style of story that you're telling, whether it's going to perpetuate over multiple seasons, whether it's going to be a miniseries, right? It's a one-off series, right? Or a limited series. Again, there's so many freaking things that are involved in this, but I feel like we've taken so much time at analyzing this stuff and going and studying this stuff.
Now it's just doing.
It's just doing, and we've been setting up for a lot of these things too through our own work, like I said, with The Cursed or with Dream Thief.
Well, just trying to get others too, like realizing that it's not just us, but people around us as well, like our industry up here, up north, it's like you guys have that opportunity, and it's just really honing that, and we really want to help with that,
My bad.
Why are you making
I don't know what
noises?
that did. Yeah, that was my bad.
But you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
these people, the people up here, the indies up north, and the indies anywhere, honestly, if you don't know what you're doing, then, like, either research it, find somebody who can help you, and really bring that to light, because don't let your story die, because, it's going off on.
Oh yeah, I was trying to see about
Sorry.
finding this. No, you're good. You're good.
The what?
The one sheet. That
The
you
one
made.
sheet? Did we post it on Instagram?
It's not just on Instagram. It's on our website. But I was gonna try to throw this up on here just so we can see it because
Oh,
I
you're
like
trying to
it.
show it?
Wait, is that the?
I forget. Did we send it to Lisa?
I don't know if we did. I don't remember if we did.
I had to review the.
not that one.
I think maybe we did.
That's the full one sheet. I was like,
I don't know if
not
I
that
made
one
a
sheet.
poster.
I don't. Yeah, you did. I
Did I?
I guess I just don't have
Oh,
it downloaded.
I. You know what?
Wait.
It might be on Instagram. If
No,
you-
it's funny because my synopsis and it's just a synopsis and the log line. It's not the treatment. But yeah, you can go to our Instagram to find it, or go to our website, highdooliganfilms.com.
Can you pull the website on
You can.
here?
Oh yes, I guess I could.
right,
Yeah, I forgot.
and then show it.
I suppose I
there.
can.
And what's our website?
highdooliganfilms.com.
Easy, simple. You can also contact us through there too.
A firm, yes. that
There's
is
also a bunch of other scripts too that are on
We
there.
do have a list of scripts that we were developing, and you can see exactly the type of stuff that we
Hey.
work with. It's not everything. Actually, it's due for an update, I think, because
Yeah?
we do have a couple things that are out,
Oh yeah. Forgot about
like short films and also features that we're working on,
Something that we-
scripts, original scripts, and things like that. Where did I have it under?
Futures. Right? Well, obviously it's a feature.
See.
And is our website? Oh, there it is. First one. It's right up top.
It is taking forever to load though. So.
Now, is that your computer or is that just it's too big?
I don't know. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna move this over here. Don't mind this moving.
You guys didn't see anything.
Yeah. So, again, treatment is available. This is based on characters of, again, it's derived from Wes Craven's work and his characters. So, yeah, that's our. It's actually in line for it, but this is the cool one sheet that you made for that.
I forgot I made that.
Yeah.
I was like, who made this?
You made this. Like, you made this, dude. I don't know if it. I don't think it. Yeah, we don't. Not on there. That's fine. But yeah, that's stuff that we want to work on, and we're going to be working on because again, it honestly got pushed to the back burner just because
that email
was
just
locked down,
reminded us. So.
and the email just reminded. So thank you again, Lisa, for reaching out and showing us that you still support us for that. We're gonna get on it, and like I said, when we say we're gonna get on it, we will get on it. All right. But yeah, understanding story, chain of title, all this sort of stuff when it comes to indie filmmaking. Like, this is all important things that we really do have to understand. That's outside of just understanding what our industry is going through. You know, some of the BS moves that the Big Five are doing. Again, I'm going to make that a thing. Like, the Big Five is not, and not the store. Dang it. I forget there's a store called the Big Five. Like,
I forgot about that store until you said something.
Yeah, the Big Five. The
big
five. Studio Five.
The Big Five.
Yeah, the Big Studio Five. They're back. You know, they are cannibalizing all the indie film companies. They are not even just the indie film companies, but just all the studios, all under just the umbrella of 5 different corporations, major corporations, to control the entire industry. Again, we want that separation, which was there, a decade ago. So, understanding our industry, understanding what's going on, and then on the flip side for creative, understanding, again, chain of title when it comes to marketing and writing stories. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that's understanding chain of title as well. There was a story. I'm trying to keep this quick because we have a few minutes left. There's an action group that I attended a few years ago, and the guy, he started out going like, "Oh, I'm open. We'll just pick an idea. We'll brainstorm as a group and pick an idea, and that's the idea that we'll make. It's just for a short film to see how everyone works together." Fantastic, sounds great. I drove like 2 hours to go and meet this new group. We all brainstormed ideas. They ended up picking my idea, which I thought was cool. This guy's like, okay, now it's my idea. And it was literally the plot to oh my gosh, what the heck is the name of it?
What?
It's a Tom Cruise film with Jamie Foxx. Oh my gosh, it's the one with the taxi. Oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. I'm sorry, guys. I am like Collateral. That was his Collateral. It was literally the plot to Collateral that he was describing, and these other filmmakers that were in there were like, you mean like Collateral? And he's like, no, not like that movie. It was like, have you seen that movie? He's like, no. Like, then how do you know that that's not it? So, that can be important if he's trying to make a feature based off of the same thing. Again, it may not be derived from it, but if it ever comes down to it's too similar to it, like I said, there has to show intent that you are trying to steal somebody's work, like you're using their lines. Yeah, again, but he's coming. If that's the idea he's based off of, great, right? People have already seen it. May not be something that they want to see again. Anyway, so understanding all those different things, understanding chain of title. My heart really does go out to the Thomas brothers and hope that they get their rights back from the big conglomerate Disney.
Just like Disney. The guys from Friday the 13th, they won.
And it sucks because like there was still litigation that talked about like with Superman, all those things. So hopefully, we'll be keeping an eye on that stuff. This is what we do. Again, hopefully you guys will if you like this, hit the subscribe button down below. You can become a hooligan yourself at our Patreon, patreon.com/HideHooliganFilms, or you can buy one of our RPG IRL shirts from thewanderkiltsman.com/shop. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Have a great beginning of your week.
Bye.